Welcome to Sports News, and we'll begin with some heartwarming news for our soccer. Nigeria will not be suspended from international football after it met the conditions set out by FIFA to organize its football federation. FIFA last week set a deadline of September the 8th to ensure that persons claiming to have been elected into NFF positions vacate the federation's offices, and the NFF General Secretary Musa Amadu perform his duties without interference. The Swiss-based body expects the NFF Executive Committee to meet as soon as possible and convene an extraordinary General Assembly to decide on the roadmap leading to the elections, which should be open to all persons in line with the FIFA or the NFF statutes. The world governing body emphasized that it would monitor the situation, and should the electoral process be affected by any interference, Nigeria will be suspended indefinitely. In the meantime, Nigeria's Super Eagles had a training session this evening under the watchful eyes of coach Stephen Keshi as they prepare for the 2015 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against South Africa. This will be the last training session for the African champions before the crucial encounter tomorrow. The Super Eagles have a hefty advantage over Bafana Bafana, winning 7 out of 9 matches played between both teams and losing just 1. Since the first meeting in 1992, Nigeria has scored 19 goals against South Africa, conceding just 3. On the other hand, South Africa's Bafana Bafana are confident of ending a depressing record against Nigeria when both teams clash tomorrow in a 2015 African Nations Cup qualifier. Following an emphatic 3-0 win over Sudan in Khartoum on Friday, South Africa will set out to make history against the Super Eagles at Cape Town Stadium. Bafana Bafana have never beaten the Super Eagles in a Cup of Nations or World Cup match. The Cape Town Showdown is a highlight of the 14-fixture match day 2 schedule, with Cameroon taking on Côte d'Ivoire in Yaoundé, while Egypt square off against Tunisia in Cairo. In club soccer, European football clubs have refused to rule out a Summer World Cup in Qatar in 2022, asking for strong reasons from the world's football governing body FIFA before accepting a decision to move it to a different time of the year. ECA Vice President Umberto Gandini is concerned that playing the World Cup in Europe's winter months could seriously disrupt domestic league and European Cup competitions. However, FIFA President Sepp Blatter ruled out the possibility of a Summer World Cup in 2022.
There are many factors. It's very difficult to speculate on this. The only thing I would like to add, as I said before, is that there must be very, very good reasons for moving the World Cup from its natural slot, because it will jeopardize the entire game worldwide, and I think we have to be very, very careful.
I believe that the right number is 76% of all players released are contracted in Europe by European clubs, and I believe that is a number which makes us relatively sure that our position is very strong in not just alone in Europe, in the football world. And so let's wait, and then we are ready to go in discussions, of course, also with FIFA.
In tennis, newly crowned U.S. Open men's singles champion Marin Cilic was on top of the world and New York as he posed with his new trophy. Cilic said the gravity of his accomplishment is still sinking in. He feels his chances of being able to win another Grand Slam are better than ever.
Just amazing for me still after the final. Sort of a lot of emotions came out, but you know, I still don't feel what I've done, what I've achieved, to be part of the history, to be among all these great champions, and to be part of history that's gonna live forever. And it sort of seemed almost impossible to be among this era and to win a Grand Slam, and just by winning it, it sort of still feels completely unreal.
I guess part of the excitement is shaving off his beard. And that's it on Sports News. Back to Marachi with the rest of the news at 10.
Away from sports news, as Nigeria prepares for the 69th session of the United Nations General Assembly, which begins next week in New York, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Alhaji Aminu Wali, is emphasizing the need to review the size of the country's delegation. He made this observation during the final interministerial meeting for the session, where the document articulating Nigeria's position on various issues was adopted. He said that Nigeria usually has the largest delegation to such events, even though 80% of the delegation add no value to the trip.
There is certainly a need to really have a second look and see that those of our delegation that go to the European General Assembly do add value. It's not a question of having a jamboree, because it's more like a jamboree Optimus Fair. And luckily for me, I happen to have served for 4 years as the Nigerian ambassador and permanent representative of the United Nations. So I know, if we are going to be honest with ourselves, 80% of the delegates that go from Nigeria do not add value to our deliberations in the United Nations. I know, because I was there. All right? And I don't have anything against it. But still, we are working towards making sure that at least we get value for money.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Alhaji Aminu Wali, leader of Syria's key Islamist insurgents group Arha al-Sham, is among the 20 who have been killed in an attack in the country. Hassan Aboud was said to have died in the attack perpetrated by a suicide bomber who detonated a vest during a meeting of the group's leaders in Idlib province. Arha al-Sham had denounced the Islamic State in June, saying it represented the worst image of Islam. Meanwhile, 2 months since the Malaysia flight MH17 crashed, Dutch experts say the plane broke up in mid-air after being hit by objects that pierced it at high velocity. The new report also suggests that there was no evidence of technical or human error. Cynthia Ara has more.
Well, thanks a lot. That's in fact the sad situation of things. Investigators relied on cockpit data, air traffic control and images as the crash site in eastern Ukraine remains too dangerous to access amid fighting between government troops and rebels. The plane was flying from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur when it crashed in rebel-held territory. Also today, barely 24 hours since power changed hands in Iraq, the Iraqi Ministry of Defense has confirmed that heavy machine guns and ammunition are being donated to help the country fight Islamic State militants. The UK Defense Secretary confirmed the equipment was worth about £1.6 million and there would be an estimated £475,000 in transport costs. Then an Egyptian court has sentenced a leader of the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood and an Islamist cleric to 20 years in prison for attempting to kill 2 policemen. That's part of a government crackdown that has severely weakened the group. Mohammed El-Beltaghi and cleric Safwat Hegazi were convicted of detaining and attempting to kill the policemen during protests against the military's overthrow of Islamist President Mohamed Morsi last year. Finally, one of 2 British explorer ships that vanished in the Arctic more than 160 years ago has been found. Canada's Prime Minister said it was unclear which ship had been found, but photo evidence confirmed it was one of the 2. And those are the top stories on the foreign scene. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. And the main news again. The federal government says the military is in firm control of Bama, the second largest city in Borno State. This revelation came from the coordinator of the National Information Center, Mr. Mike Omeri. He told journalists in Abuja that the military is fighting the insurgents in towns where the Islamists are challenging the armed forces. The federal government has declared First Consultants Medical Center, the hospital in Lagos that treated the first index case of Ebola, after a decontamination exercise. The hospital is set to reopen after the Lagos State Ministry of Health confirmed the clearance in a letter to its management. And the Super Eagles of Nigeria have held their final training session in Cape Town ahead of tomorrow's AFCON 2015 qualifier against South Africa.